Series of author interviews is brought to you by Leisure Press and the Book Reality Experience, turning writers' dreams into book realities.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Book Realities, our series of interviews with independent authors. And tonight we're joined by, well, I say tonight, it's probably her middle of the day, because we're being joined by Kerry Freeman all the way from North Carolina. Hi, Kerry, how are you?
Hi, Ian, doing well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, for everybody that doesn't know about Kerry, tell us about your latest book, Sedona.
So actually, this book is my debut. It's called Sedona, a Novel, and it is a modern reimagining of The Wizard of Oz. So it's much grittier. It definitely doesn't have all the characters that you found somewhere over the rainbow before. But it's a lot of fun. It takes place in Sedona, Arizona, which is an actual tourist town that's visited from people all over the world. And it follows a 20-some-year-old who moves there with her grandmother who has cancer, and looking for an alternate way to find healing. And in the process, gets herself wrapped up in a mystery because she seems to have no boundaries, and was way too curious for her own good. You really get to know all the people in the town, and they become those same characters that you have a familiarity with The Wizard of Oz. And she goes on a little amateur sleuth mystery search, and I'm not going to give away the ending, but it really is a lot of fun, a lot of good banter, very witty. So yeah, it's fun.
Now, that's interesting because I thought when I had read the book and then I was reading about your background, I thought that you'd written, or is it blogs that you've written previously? It's lots and lots of that, yeah?
Yeah, so I have a blog called Books and Bevies, and it features authors from all over the world that pair their books with beverages. So I have had New York Times bestsellers all the way to self-published debuts, and they come on my blog and they tell us all about these really cool libations that they have come up with that connect to their books. So I've had children's books and poetry books, fiction and nonfiction, and it's so cool because it gives readers this opportunity to get to know and engage with the author a little bit more. And so when they get the book, they can actually taste the thing that the author usually talks about within the book itself.
So is
And then I
this,
blast it on social media. Yeah.
sorry, say that last bit again?
Oh, and then I blast it all over social media so everyone sees it.
Fantastic. So those books and bevies, books and booze, are they books that have got mention of those drinks in them, or are they the drinks that the author just likes themselves, or is it a combination of a bit of both?
It's actually a combination of both, because some of them just say you have to enjoy this with a cup of tea because it's heartwarming, and then some kind of do what I do and they enjoy drinking while they write. And so they'll mention that as a way to say, like, yeah, this is something that I love and this is something that I do. So yeah, it's
That's
fun.
fantastic. So going back to your book, I noticed that there was an awful lot of mentions, not saying anything critical about it at all because it touched my heart dearly, of a particular drink, bourbon, which seemed to be cascading through. There was old fashions being poured out for the main character, Cal. There was quite a lot of it. I mean, I was wondering, are you being sponsored by Kentucky just for the fun of it?
No, but I definitely had a few old fashions while I was writing. I do have a couple of favorites that I probably go back to that are probably on my shelves more than they should be. But Yellowstone is one up and coming bourbon that came out of the Midwest in the United States, and it's pretty good. It's full bodied, and you can just put a ice cube in it or just drink it straight, and it's great. And I also love that Old Forester came out with a series of different years of their bourbons. And so they
Nice.
have different proofs. So some of them are really great for old fashions, and some of them are just a really nice 90 proof where you can just sip on it and really enjoy it. So I love that Cal had that southern spice in her that she could go in and be fully comfortable ordering a bourbon and not just what you usually see, which is, probably a lot more tequila in
Yeah,
that area.
I was very impressed because I mean I'm a avid follower of Blanton's and Maker's Mark. So Maker's Mark normally because it's a little bit cheaper than Blanton's, and Blanton's as a special occasion when I can get my hands on it.
Right.
So let's go back to Cal and her Southern spice, because anybody with a little bit of an ear will pick up that you've got quite a Southern accent, although you're in North Carolina, yeah?
Yes, I definitely am. So I had Cal come from Atlanta, Georgia, because I wanted her to have a little bit of a deeper Southern drawl when she moved over to Arizona. But yeah, North Carolina, most of us do have a pretty thick dialect because really across North Carolina we have the mountains and we have the coastline. And so depending on where you are, even within North Carolina, your dialect changes a little bit, which is pretty unique. It's fun.
Well, it's one of the few states that I've spent time in myself. And obviously, because I was former Air Force, when I was in Virginia Beach working with military guys up there, I was lucky enough to spend some time there. But on weekends, I could drive down to North Carolina. And obviously, one of the places that I had to go to was to see where the Wright brothers had managed to hop,
Of
skip, and jump
course.
a little bit. But I ended up in Raleigh and various other places driving around looking for a lost colony that nobody else has managed to find either. So there you go. It was
Well,
great
then you
fun.
were very close to where I live because I'm in Chapel Hill, which is
Oh,
right near Raleigh. So yes, right in the
very good.
triangle.
Let's go back to Sedona. Why have you taken your people to a real life town in Arizona? What is it about? And am I pronouncing it properly? Is it Sedona or is it Sedona, or how do you
Oh no,
say it
you had
properly?
it. You actually said it properly. It is Sedona. So Sedona is known for, and really that originally in the 80s and the 90s, the 1980s, the 1990s. I have to say that now. It was known to have the spiritual connection. So like magic crystals, the water, the vortexes that are there were known to heal. And even today, I got to go for the first time this summer and experience what that's all about, which was really cool. It has a draw for people who are just looking for an alternate way to be healed. And so I, I thought it would be a really neat connection for Cal to go out there with her grandmother and experience that. And you walk through the grandmother's journey, even though she's a side character. I will spoil it and say she's the Glinda of the Wizard of Oz, if you will. She's the wisdom, she's the encouragement, but she really does have a very strong tie to some of Cal's decisions that she makes when she's being wise. So Sedona was a perfect place for this character to go and be healed kind of in the periphery without uh, Cal having to be a part of it in every moment. Um, so yeah, it is a magical place. It is absolutely beautiful. I encourage anyone um, who to look at the pictures of Sedona. First of all, the buttes that come out of nowhere, the red rocks. There is a really cool energy that surrounds that whole location, and it's just worth the trip. I would love to spend more time there. So it's
I've got
amazing.
to say, I had to Google when I was going through the first chapter, like within the first chapter of the book, I'd come across this word butte, Butte, and
Yes.
there was a number of mentions of it, and I thought I actually don't know what that is. So thanks to Wikipedia, I love it. And obviously as soon as you see it, it's the steep sided mountain flat top. I mean, it screams Arizona and that area of the southwest. And it's
Yes.
like, oh right, I get that. So how did you get to know about it? Because I mean, that's like me saying about this author in Perth and writing about Eastern Australia. Arizona's not a hop, skip, and a jump from North Carolina.
It absolutely is not, Ian. It was a screensaver that came up on my computer one night while I was doing some free writing. And I looked at the screensaver and I asked, how would a Southerner end up in this beautiful place? And what would they think of a place like this? And then I just started writing about Cal. So she was the first character that I placed there and kind of fell in love with how she interacted with the landscape and how she was affected by it in a southern perspective way, because I think people come at it in a lot of different ways, but from her version of it. So yeah, when I saw that first butte pop up on the screen, it was red. I'm like, is this place real? There's no way this place is real. I thought these mountains were mostly like the sandy tan color, but it was absolutely breathtaking when I saw the photo and had to put a character there.
That is so cool. So I can suggest from that you're not a planner. You don't have spreadsheets of plans worked out with multicolored post-it notes all over your office, ready to take you from plot point A to plot point B. You basically saw a screensaver and went, haha, I'm going to write a book.
Yes, and that's kind of how I've approached the other books that I've written that have not come out yet. Yeah, I'm definitely one who likes my characters to breathe. I had read the book by Stephen King called On Writing, and he talks about his process and how he does not necessarily plot out what's going to happen at the end. I mean, sometimes that's why some of his books were so long, because his characters made all these decisions and none of them were wrong. They were all like, well, they made the decisions. I now have to find out what's going to happen. And I approached Sedona with a little more of that than I had realized, which is why it took me a little bit longer. There was a whole stretch of a month that I didn't even write because my characters were in this turmoil, and I was like, y'all have to get yourselves out of it. What are you gonna do? And so when the ending finally came, I mean, I was so excited. I told my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, it's there. It's just like a light bulb. They figured it out. And I gave all the credit to the characters in my head. That sounds crazy, but yeah.
No, it doesn't actually. And throughout, if anybody ever wants to know why we're all crazy together, all they have to do is go and look at the rest of the interviews that are in the book reality series, because almost every single interview, and if it not every one, but at least every second one, there's an author that says, well, then the character decided to do this. And you go, but you wrote that character. Yeah, I know I wrote the character, but honestly, they just came up with it and they figured it out. Yeah, it's great. And then you go and tell your spouse. So you run into your wife or your husband and you go, they've got it. And they look at you like you're insane and they wonder why they ever married you in the first place.
That's right. Luckily, he was jumping up and down too, because he wanted to know what was going to happen at the end.
Right. So speaking of that, then, your husband's not a writer. You are. Is writing what you do all the time? Is it what you want to do all the time? What's your career path? You left school and you went to do what?
So I have been a teacher for almost 20 years, high school English teacher. So I've done middle and high school. And over the last 2 years, I transitioned into writing curriculum for the high school where I have been for the last 7 years. So I do write full time in the sense that I'm writing curriculum and working with data and teachers to help them to match and align their curriculum with their instruction. And I absolutely love it. It is one of the coolest jobs I've ever gotten to do. Would I like to spend full time writing novels? Absolutely. But part of me wonders if my resources would dry up, because you get so much inspiration from what happens outside of your book that impacts the book itself. So I'm afraid if I stopped working at any point, I would have to go and like sit in an airport and just watch people and talk to them so I could get inspiration for my books.
So you're doing all the observing, but all the people are coming to you at the present time. So how many of your students, obviously not by name, but how many of your students' quirks and attributes have crept in?
Oh, quite a few. Quite a few. And over the years too, not even, recent, because I've been out of the classroom for a couple of years, but yeah, especially for the young adult characters. As we get older, we lose touch with that. So even my own children in my house, especially I have a teenage daughter, there are things that I have to kind of pick up from her and say, wait, say that word again. I need to know that word because it needs to get into a book. So that's an important piece, I think, to stay fresh.
Fantastic. So when did you start writing then for for fun, for entertainment, for yourself? Has that been since you were a little girl, or did that start later?
I've definitely always been writing, even when I was younger. I've written things in journals and diaries, and I created a newspaper for my stuffed animals when I was a kid. And then, I've always written on newspapers in middle and high school, and done a lot of nonfiction kind of work. But I think I became more serious about writing with short stories, because they were easier to come up with and kind of spit out. And then eventually I knew I wanted to finish a novel, but it's really hard when, especially when you have kids, to have that time and not feel selfish or guilty about spending that time. But as I've gotten older, being able to fit it in little by little was very helpful. So after I finished the first book, it's been easier to spend bigger chunks of time writing, and I love it.
So do you have a schedule in, or did you have a schedule? Were you up at 5 o'clock to fit in a couple of hours writing before the bedlam of children and breakfasts and school runs? Or did you fit it in odd times through the day?
I mean, I definitely fit it in probably more in the afternoon, evenings than mornings. I don't know how authors write in the morning. I'm not in a place, a headspace where I can get up at 5 a.m. and write. But yeah, in the afternoons and evenings is probably when my brain is settled enough to where I can sit and write. And I do have to have longer chunks of time. I definitely respect authors who can do like 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here. But I feel like once I sit inside of a character, I have to figure out what's going to happen. Like I can't just walk away. And so I would rather get away for a couple of days and write 50,000 words and just sit in it. And so it's consistent, than have to go back and forth. That's a challenge.
Yeah, I'm very much the same as you. If I can get a couple of hours of writing, I can get something out. But
Yes.
where I sit down to start writing and the doorbell goes and it's the delivery guy, and you come back in, I can lose 15 minutes for what should have been an interruption of one. You go out, you say hi, you take the parcel, you come back in. But then I need to get back into the swing of this. And it's really
Right.
difficult. So anybody that can do these 15-minute flash, rattle out 1,000 words, I think that's fantastic. But I can't.
Yeah.
So when it comes to where you're writing, if you're not away for a couple of days, I can see behind you a fantastic telescope, which I'm very jealous of. I also think I can see a headshot of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and an on-air, which is, I mean, I'm jealous of all of that behind you. The on-air one especially, I think we should turn that on.
You definitely need that in your
Yeah,
office.
I definitely need that behind me. So is this where you do your writing? Is this your room away in the top of the house?
Yeah, so this is my office. My husband actually helped me design and build this over the last couple of years. So this is my first full year in my office. And the on-air sign, because I'm a virtual educator, I've been a virtual educator for 7 years, long before the pandemic happened. And I have 3 children, so they would come to the door, and if my on-air sign is on, then they know they can't come in because my camera's on. And if it's off, it means they can. So it actually has like a purpose for actually telling them don't come in my office. And the only entrance, this is actually goes to a closet, is in front of me as a big glass door that spans the wall in front. And so it's beautiful. It feels like a tree house, and it is a wonderful place to write. It's quiet, it's soundproof, so you can't hear anything. And when you open the door, you just see the breeze and the trees. And yeah, I'm
That's
very lucky. I have
absolutely.
bookshelves here.
So you've got bookshelves either side, and you've got a
Yes.
view out to trees out the front.
Yes, it's just all trees in the front. And a
I'm
little deck has a table.
I'm very impressed. I love the fact about the on air. I'm sure you remember the guy who went viral from the BBC during the pandemic when his kid wandered in during the BBC interview. I loved that. That was
Oh
so
my
much
gosh,
fun.
that was so great.
I've got to say that the pandemic, obviously, which was a tragedy for an awful lot of people, moved us forward to the point where virtual education, virtual interviews, virtual conferences, where everybody kind of hung back because they said the technology couldn't handle it. Well, obviously the technology could handle it. And you'd been pioneering one of those aspects of it for a lot of years. And now we think, well, what was the big deal? Why weren't we doing it decades ago? but there we go. So when you're not in your hiatus of your little treehouse, which I'm going to call it your little treehouse now, what do you get up to when you're not writing curriculum, looking after 3 kids, spending time with your husband?
So actually, my husband and I like to hike. So that started while we were in Sedona this summer. All we did was hike for 3 days straight, and we found this really beautiful love for just being out in nature and in the quiet. And I did that a lot when I was younger, but again, the chaos, you don't even think to do it in your own hometown. But we have found the most beautiful little trails around where we live that we can get away during the lunch hour and just go and walk. And when we do, we don't even talk. I mean, we just listen to the sounds, and I come up with all kinds of crazy storylines that I share with him afterwards. But it's really rejuvenating just to be out. It's almost like a transcendentalist heaven, a little nod to Walt Whitman, just being out in nature. And it's just been a really cool experience. We've had some of our kids have come with us and experienced that same quiet of just being one with a different space than just being inside all the time. So that's one thing that we really love to do. I do play music. I play the guitar. So that's one thing that I pick up a lot when I'm just needing to do something different. So yeah, and we spend a lot of time together as a family. We really enjoy our family time, which is great. I feel very blessed to have that, because I know there's some people that just want to just shut the doors and get away, but I absolutely love when we can do something together. So that's
fantastic. Good. So when you're doing the hiking, do you have an app that you use to find the trails? And
Yes.
if you do have an app to find the trails, which one? I'm just going to look at my phone because I can't remember the name of the one that I've used. It's All Trails is the one that I use. Is that you?
Yeah, we should be friends.
Yeah, you drink bourbon and you go hiking. Excellent. Let's do that.
Oh, and there's actually a trail near my house called the Bourbon and Bulldog Trail, something like that. And it is, you drink bourbon and you walk down a trail and you look at art. I'm like, this is just the greatest thing ever.
My wife would love that. I mean, the walking bit that I do the hiking, she does pottery. She's a ceramic artist. And when she's not doing what she does for a living, so she would send me on the walk, but we both enjoyed bourbon. So yeah, we would appreciate that, and she would appreciate the art. So when you are doing those hiking things, just on that, when you're in Sedona, for example, are you out with a tent, or are you coming back and sleeping in a decent hotel? Is it the hiking that you like, or the backpacking ruggedness?
Oh gosh, I would love to get to the point. I've definitely talked to my husband about let's do longer trails where we can stay overnight. We have not done that yet. We have just done day trips out and back, which is that's been really great. Especially just getting back into something like that. You do have to little by little, but I will say I have a new pair of hiking boots and a backpack, so I'm taking it way more seriously than I was a year ago.
Fantastic. So when you finish the hiking and you come back, so Sedona it's been pre-released to reviewers, etc. When's it actually being released? When's it hitting the marketplace?
All right, so pre-sales begin, it was supposed to be in October, but it looks like it's going to be sooner than that. So you can actually go on Amazon and do pre-sales for Kindle starting today, paperback within the next couple of weeks. And then the book is released officially in November 15th. So
right. So we should say today, for anybody that's watching this, today is the 14th of September, 2023. Yeah. We might actually release this around about the week coming up to the release of the book. So they might be getting to see it around about November time. But when it's there, ready to go, it's all finished. So what's on your computer at the moment? What's the next thing that's coming from Kerry?
Very exciting. I have a book that I finished about a year ago that I'd been shopping to agents and publishers, and did put it in for a literary prize, and it made the top 10 list, and we find out tomorrow if it won or not. But it is a historical fiction, again, mystery that takes place in North Carolina this time, based on a real place called Mayview Manor. And it's an amazing story. It follows kind of this epic family timeline that spans multi-generations and ends with a big twist. So really excited about that one. Maybe Manor is the name of that book. So it will hopefully be published within the next year. And then the book that I'm working on right now is called, should I tell you what it's called? It's called The Bird Watcher. And it is another mystery thriller, a little bit grittier than my other two books, that has multi viewpoints throughout, that tells the story about a girl who finds herself in a town on a river, and when she arrives a few months later, a bunch of bodies wash up on the shore. So it's more of a murder mystery, and it's good. It's one of those that I have completely immersed myself in, and my husband's like, "Oh my gosh, this is dark. What are you writing?" But I love it. It's thrilling to me.
Fantastic. I'm going to come back to that and ask you a question about that, about researching those dark things. But first, the prize that your book was entered into, which one was that? Was that
It's
Book
called
Life?
it's actually the Petrichor Fine Literary Prize.
Oh,
And
very good.
yeah, really excited about that. The top 10 list when it was released, I was so excited about that. I was like, even if I don't win this thing, just to be on the list of the 10 people, like the 9 other people that were there, these are very intelligent, brilliant writers that I was sitting with. So that was quite a surprise. Very excited.
You do realize that they're all saying the same about you and all the rest of the writers.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think I'm the only debut author on there. So.
Oh no, that's great. Oh, congratulations and fingers crossed. So on the dark matter, so Sedona, you were able to research, I'm assuming, you'd finished writing the book before you actually went there. So you
Yes.
Google Map walked it and you used all those types of research things. But this darker, grittier side, how do you research, apart from the obvious, never look at a writer's internet browsing history, because that's a bad idea. But how do you research how you kill someone and have them wash up on a riverbank?
So with this particular book, I base it on a real place, but I won't actually call the place, but it is a really neat location. It's on a river. It's an old warehouse that got turned into these really cool condos, and it has a restaurant and a brewery and a music venue and a coffee shop. And it is a really neat spot that actually exists, in North Carolina. And so after spending a lot of time there, I actually spent time there writing my second book. That's where I went on my writing retreat. And I knew I was going to have to base a book out of this place. So I was already starting to plot a little bit in my head about what it was going to be like. And this particular river has multiple dams in it, some that were torn down and some that are still in use. And I thought, what if someone had put bodies down the river that got stuck behind this dam, and when they eventually released the dam, all of these bodies came out, and what would happen? And so that's kind of where the idea came from. I think there are a half dozen bodies in the book. That starts off in the book. These 6 bodies have washed ashore, and throughout the book you find out who the 6 are, over generations of time. And so yeah, I definitely had to look up how long it took for a body to decompose in water, and what a body would look like or feel like. And yeah, just way too many things that I probably shouldn't have learned about. But
it's interesting. There's a Facebook group which I haven't been on for a while because I haven't had to kill anybody recently in my books. But there was so there's a medical and doctor forum for writers. So you can go on there and go, if you were dissecting the 4th artery up the left arm of a such and such, what would it feel like? What would it look like? What would it smell like? And there's lots of medicos that are on there that go, oh yeah, I can tell you about that. There's a police and military one. There's a medical, but they're for writers to ask questions, and there's no judgment. There's nobody going, why do you want to know about putting a body in the book? And I was really lucky. I got invited, or I introduced. I've never met the lady at all, other than virtually. But a lady in my local bank who we were friends with had a friend who was a mortician, or a not a mortician, the mortuary tech.
Oh, yeah.
She did postmortems. And she never spoke about her work, obviously, because it's not the sort of thing that you come home and say,
Right.
hey, guess what I was doing today? So she used to love the text messages and the emails that we would send back and forward, where I would say, if you slashed from there to there, what would you actually see when you want? And she, I love this. Oh, it's great. I get to talk about my work. It's like,
That's
whee!
awesome.
So
That's a good friend to have.
find yourself a friend who's a post-mortem mort tech. So that's always worth
Okay.
having in your back pocket. So with regards to your book then, you've obviously received some amazing feedback with being listed in the top 10 for the prize. What about other feedback for your writing, be that your blog or your books? What's the best feedback you've had?
Well, for Sedona, the debut, it was also longlisted for the Santa Fe Writers Project Award, which was an awesome award. Just to be on the long list, they kind of have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening, not just politically in the world and culturally, but just trends. And I was very excited that Sedona would have that. It being my first writing project, my first novel that's out there. That was a lot of encouragement to keep going and not just say like, here's my book, let's see what happens. But with the blog, I would say that I get a lot of feedback from writers that just say thank you for having a free space for authors to be featured. I don't charge anything, and it is a wonderful community where authors can feel supported by each other and for readers. And a lot of those same authors have been coming back and saying like, for my next book, can we do this? Or two of the authors actually did the foreword for Sedona, so you can actually see they were two of my readers who wrote forewords in there. And so it really is a community that I feel like we're mutually creative and supportive, with no judgment, like you said, with no judgment. And yeah, I if anything, I'm very proud of that, and I'm excited that it's been helpful for other authors and readers out there to connect. Yes.
So before we get away from the last novel and I ask you a bunch of rapid fire questions, who was your favorite? So I know the answer to this for me. Who was your favorite character in Sedona? And I won't get you to say why they were your favorite by giving away any of the plot, but who are they and why for you?
Oh gosh. All right. So I will say so Drunk Tommy, I loved writing Drunk Tommy because he is probably the opposite of who I am. So I will say that. I'll say my favorite overall character is Cal. I mean, yeah, I love Cal. The way she approached everything, her sense of humor, she's just she has such an open spirit, and yet she's kind of paranoid. I loved Cal on so many levels, but Drunk Tommy was definitely more fun to write.
That is so cool because my favorite character by a country mile is Tommy. I
Okay.
think Tommy is so cool, and
Yeah.
and he's obnoxious at the start, and you
Yeah.
think, why would anybody? I mean, I get why you would write someone to be your foil for your main hero or heroine, but God, he's a nasty piece of work. But the character arc that he goes through was superb. It was really well done. I thought it was superb writing. So congratulations. I encourage everybody to go out, if only to read about Drunk Tommy, because he's worth
That's
reading.
right. I agree. So, his backstory was my favorite. His backstory was by far my favorite chapter.
I must admit, it wasn't until when I read your book on Kindle, and it wasn't until I really got into Tommy that it dawned on me what this was a homage to. I'd managed to miss the Wizard of Oz connections and all the rest of it until it was like, oh, now I see where this is coming from. It was really good. It was fantastic. Right, so I've got a bunch of very quick questions. Um, Now, usually I have to warn authors because we have had an occasion where I've asked an author these quick fire questions and they've gone, oh, yeah, not sure. And it's taken longer to do the quick fire than it has to do the full interview. So, quick fire, first thing that comes into your head, we will not judge you. We will not judge you. Well, we might.
Okay.
What's your favorite book?
I'm gonna say The Great Gatsby.
Oh, okay. I see. I thought you were going to go. See, I'm saying it's quick fire now. I'm going to go off and diverge.
No,
I thought you'd have said something Hemingway-ish because you like short stories and you were a short story.
Oh no, Fitzgerald, yeah, the Great Gatsby, but Fitzgerald just all around is one of those desert island books. Like if I had anything in his collection on Desert Island, I'd be happy because it has everything. It has
Very
intrigue,
good.
it has romance, it has mystery. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I've got to say that I think Hemingway's short stories are superb, and I think his novels are. I don't know how they got published, and that's a terrible thing to say, but honestly, and you're a US based English literature teacher, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just anyway. Let's not go there. If you've got one, what is your least favorite book?
There was a horror book that I never finished. It's the only book I've ever not finished. That's because it was just so gross. It was called The Troop, and it came out like a few years back. I got it at a used bookstore. I know, but yeah, that it was a horror book, and it was really just I got 7 chapters in and had to put it down. It was good writing. It was just really gross. So yeah, I didn't like.
Always think it's better to leave it to the reader's imagination. You don't actually have to stab.
Yeah.
In all of life, in an emotional, artistic nature sense, what turns you on?
Oh, in all of life. Um, I would say like beauty in nature. I mean, there's really not much that I'm totally inspired by what happens outside the window, whether it's a rainstorm or beautiful weather or snow or whatever. Like if I can look out a window, I am happy. Or just be outside. I guess I don't window.
Yeah, fantastic. And conversely, what turns you off?
Yeah, if I had to stay inside. Like if I worked in a school once that was a shoebox that had no windows, I would just whimper. It's awful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. Former military intelligence officer, we worked in rooms within buildings. It was like, oh. Which brings us to summer or winter, or actually, I'll let you cheat, spring or autumn as well.
I'd have to say either fall or winter for sure. I love the cold weather. Love it.
Okay. And on a completely free day, I imagine from your earlier answers, I know where you're going to go with this. On a completely free day to do anything you want, who do you spend it with?
Oh, definitely my husband and my kids. I mean, my husband's my best friend. I'm so lucky I married my best friend, but yeah, definitely him.
That's cool. Mountains or oceans?
Mountains for sure.
Okay. And what's your favorite movie? And you're only allowed to pick one.
My favorite movie is The Philadelphia Story with Cary
Oh,
Grant, Jimmy Stewart,
oh, so
Katharine
the
Hepburn.
old black and
Yes,
white version.
the old black and white. Yes, my
Very good.
favorite.
For the rest of your life, you've got one song that's just going to be playing on loop. What have you got?
Oh, that's just so hard. I mean, pretty much, pretty much anything by Miles Davis. I listen to a lot of jazz, but his Blue album is my favorite. I mean, one of his songs lasts for the entire side A, other than like a couple of minutes. So yeah, I would say really anything by Miles Davis would make me happy.
Now, let's divert again from these quickfire questions. So it's a while ago since I've read your book, so you're going to have to remind me. Do you have jazz as an interlude in the book with Cal? Does Cal reference jazz during the book?
No, but in my second book, in Mayview Manor, I do. I talk about, I have Billie Holiday that happens kind of throughout with music, and Anita Baker. So I do have some different jazz elements there. But no, I don't know if jazz would really fit in with Sedona. I think it's more of
No,
an American.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you've read Michael Conley's Bosch books,
Yes.
where jazz, and he's sitting up in the valley overlooking Los Angeles. The jazz kind of just pours out of it, and
Love that.
it's lovely. But yeah, I couldn't remember because I didn't think Sedona, with its crystals and its kind of witchy feel jazz. I mean, Miles wasn't really going to be the beat that was going
No,
to fit in there.
definitely not. He's definitely more of an urban. I see more of an urban landscape with Miles Davis, or maybe a northeast feel with like Maine, Rhode Island. But yeah.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I've got one of my main character, or my main character, is a fan of punk, so I get to have her listening to all the bands that I used to like. So it's great.
I love
but
that.
but I've got another character who loves jazz, but I haven't been able to put as much of that in as I wanted, because it was kind of like, isn't that going to be stealing a little bit from Michael Connelly and Bosch and all the guys? And people are going to go, oh, there's a lot of jazz happening with these criminal types. Right. Who makes you laugh the most?
Oh, my husband. He is hilarious all the time. So all the time.
Fantastic. What smell do you love?
The fall. I love all the smells of fall. I mean, the leaves, the smoky smells, the pumpkin, spices. I love fall smells.
So you're basically just about to go into Nirvana for the next couple of months.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Am I guessing that when your children were growing up, Halloween wasn't really celebrated at all? It was just an underplayed event that didn't take any
Not at
precedence?
all. No, we didn't decorate starting in September, not take them down through November.
Yeah. Why do you love Halloween so much? Oh, my mom used to like it a lot.
Yeah, right.
We had no choice.
That's right.
And what smell do you hate?
There is a tree that grows in North Carolina. Probably, I don't know where all it grows, but it's a Bradford pear tree, and whenever it blooms in the spring, it has these beautiful white blooms, but they smell absolutely awful, and it just blows for a couple of weeks. You just smell that smell, and then the flowers will fall off, and it's okay again. It's off.
There must be a horticulturally genetic reason that it smells so bad. What eats the Bradford pear?
I'm not sure. I don't know
Maybe
who
it's
was
to maybe it's to scare away small children.
Maybe it is.
So other than a teacher, or indeed a writer, which you now are, what profession would you like to do?
Question. I could be a musician. I'd love to be a musician. That would be awesome.
So
Play
just
guitar all day.
yeah, just sitting in a jazz bar surrounded by bourbon
Yeah,
and playing guitar.
why not? Yeah, that's heaven.
Yeah, yes. Only
In the
coming out for
fall.
only coming out for Halloween celebrations.
That's right.
And what profession would you absolutely detest? What would you not want to do?
Oh gosh, anything with numbers and finances, where I'd have to be in a cubicle in the dark working with numbers. That's the exact opposite of my personality.
Fair enough. And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get to the pearly gates?
Probably just an affirmation, like you did well, you did something right, you left a legacy. That would make me happy.
Well, that seems a perfect place to end this. Kerry, thanks ever so much for taking all the time out to talk to us. I'm assuming I did say it's night time, as you can see outside in Western Australia. It is the middle of the afternoon with you, isn't it?
It is right before lunchtime, so perfect timing.
Well, thanks again for taking the time out. I really appreciate it. And good luck with the book launch and success, fingers crossed, for the prize.
Ian, thank you so much.
If you're an independent author and you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and YouTube channels, simply email guest@bookreality.com or visit our website at bookreality.com and have a look at our podcast page.
Hi, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more readings and author interviews. And don't forget to hit that button to be notified every time we post new content.